this beautiful Sunday night, we are coming to you live from our Nile Serena studios. This is Perspective with Josephine Karunji.
A very good evening and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. We're coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Nile Room. And tonight we tackle the very critical conversation, the critical subject of gender equality, Uganda's path to it and how to get there. The show is done in collaboration with UN Women, Embassy of Sweden and the Norwegian Embassy. Very quickly, let me introduce my guests for this evening. I'll start with Tina, who is sitting right next to me. Tina is the Executive Director of Center for Domestic Violence Prevention, CEDOVIP. Tina Musuya. We've become such good friends that I forget to use the other name. On the other side, we have Ambassador Susan Eki, who is the Norway's ambassador to Uganda. Very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Anne Gamurura, who is the Executive Director of Communication for Development Foundation Uganda, CDFU. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
Right, let's say it as it is. Right, welcome back. Once again, we are coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Nile Room. And as I said, we're talking about gender equality today and Uganda's path to it. When we say gender equality, just so that we don't lose anybody along the way, what do we mean? And this is open to anybody. Tina, would you like to start?
Yes. When we talk about gender equality, we are talking about addressing the historical injustices that heaped a lot of privileges socially on the side of men and left women at a second-class position. And this comes with a lot of challenges because then that means there's a lot of discrimination and exclusion. Now, when we talk about gender equality, we are talking about addressing those historical social injustices to put men and women at or to have them of equal worth and value with equal opportunities, and that's what sustainable development is all about.
All right. Well, I just do want us to get this lost in translation because there's always the argument that comes out that now they're trying to get the women in trousers and the men in the kitchen cooking, and then it goes out of proportion. So just to get also from one of you what your understanding of gender equality is.
I think it is very much about mutual respect, that we should allow the partner or the sister or the brother or the mother, they should all have equal opportunities to do what they want and to live their life to the fullest of their ability and possibility. And if there is a man who loves to cook, why not let him cook? I think some of the leading chefs today in the world are men. And if women want to wear pants, why shouldn't they? It's very stylish.
Okay.
And also, I think it is recognizing the big work that women are doing, which is left behind closed doors. Get it up front and recognize them and give them the equal space that they really do need.
Okay. Oh, Tina, you mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'll take my next question from there. In that context, and looking especially at goal number 5, which achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, there is the belief that of all of the 16, if this is left unachieved, the rest are not going to go anywhere. Is that true?
Yes, that's very true. The reason as to why we are where we are is because for centuries it hasn't been addressed. And I'll just take a little example of, we as humans are flying. Development is like a bird in motion. So if you have to achieve sustainable development, all the wings of the bird must fly like this. Right now, because of gender inequality, the bird is moving with half wing.
It's not really moving, is it?
That's why we are stuck like this. Now, when we talk about gender equality, we are trying to flap this wing that is bent to fly like this. And then we shall move. So one wing is women, one wing is men. That's gender equality.
So where is Uganda now? Are we still crawling?
I think limping.
Limping.
Is what I can say.
Okay.
I think the experience from Norway has been in particular, one aspect is the economic side of it. And some economists in Norway have said that women contribute more to Norway's wealth, Norway's prosperity, than the oil. And I think it's very topical here in Uganda. You're waiting for the oil to come out. It will be very important for Uganda. But the value of what you create here in terms of economic assets, that is going to come from the full participation of women and men and the use of the talent of the whole Ugandan population, not only part of it. And we see now that your crew are a lot of women. You are a women presenter. What would it be like if we only had men? We'd lose those professionals, very good professionals, that are here helping to bring the show to the on air tonight.
Yeah. What do we need to do to stop limping or to stop crawling wherever it is that we are by 2030? What do we need to do to achieve goal number 5?
I think we all Ugandans should know what they would gain by giving the woman space and equal opportunity to access land, to access money, to access education. If they knew, I'm sure they all would say, yes, we are going to give women that equal opportunity so that we'll gain. Because if you look at the women who are educated and what they are bringing into the economy, you would say, yes, I would wish I had some more of these.
Well, there's always the argument when people look at the women that we have that have gotten this space, as you say it, and they ask, is it enough to just give the women this space, this platform? Is that all we need to get gender equality?
Because the gender inequality is rooted in so many structures, it is even rooted in how people perceive women and men. So it's about the belief system, it's about the attitudes, it's about undoing even the traditions that have become some norms, some unfair laws that have become barriers to achieving gender equality. So maybe just getting out of the jargon, if we have to change this, we must look deep. In a home, how do we raise children? Are we still heaping privileges on the boy children and not giving the same opportunity to the girl who is being pulled out of school, who is being burdened with domestic chores? And then at the end of the day, we are blaming the girl for not performing well, yet she's too tired. Again, when women come to work like you and I, we are still burdened with doing all the domestic chores, baby care, domestic chore, the 8 to 5 job. So we may not get promotions on the basis that we are not performing.
You're
but
going to take 3 months maternity leave.
Which is a very good thing.
No, and then they're going to say, so we're not giving you the job because you're going to take 3 months away.
And that's unfair because reproducing to sustain life shouldn't be, they shouldn't punish women for that. And that's what Anne was talking about. We need to value that. What's the beautiful contribution that women bring to this world? We need to accord them that due respect and value.
Do you think that things like affirmative action, when we look at in Parliament, the positions that they give, that they put specifically for women, when we look at the 1.5 for women to get into university, do you think that this is working? Do you think it's helping or it's enabling a bad culture?
It has enabled because of that affirmative action, and for me I would really like to uphold the government for that. We saw a number of girls increase for tertiary education. We've seen more women participate in many opportunities, and women are also participating in politics and leadership positions. So for me, it's not yet time for us to leave that. We need more.
You still need it?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it is, sorry. Go ahead.
We need a push, a small push, because we are left behind for so long. That little push does wonders.
Yes, in Norway we have a law that all the big companies that are on the stock exchange, they have to have a minimum of 1 gender on their boards. So we are maybe seen by some of the world a little bit extreme, but I think everybody knows that diversity brings out the best results. If everybody has the same background, the same age, the same gender, you don't get good enough ideas because everybody thinks alike.
That's
And
true.
I think a little bit of forcing a variety of ideas, age, gender, other types of backgrounds, nationalities, culture, is important so that you can use your whole population to the fullest. But again, we've also seen that having women in positions doesn't necessarily bring about gender equality. So both women and men who are part of a decision-making body or even in the home have to think about gender equality, respecting each other, giving each other the same opportunities. So I think what you're saying about what's in people's head, we also as women have to be conscious when we are in decision-making positions, when we get there, to not forget our own experience and bring it to the table.
What are we using those positions for? Okay. What informs conversations like the one we're having right now? What evidence have we seen out there that says there's no gender equality?
There are many things. If, for example, you did a quick scan around positions within our country here, Uganda, there will be just a handful of women in the boardrooms. Even in parliament, even though there is affirmative action, it's not yet 50-50. It is still 30, even though the women's population is slightly higher than the men here in Uganda. Again, when it comes to things like ownership of property, many women don't own property in this country. They are either witnesses, and unfortunately, many of them don't even own their labor. Their labor belongs either to their husbands or someone else, and they're exploited. And there's even this popular, a song that I don't like much, that always insult women, that Yajana Kavera. When she comes to the marriage, despite the domestic chores that she does and caregiving and so on, her contribution is not valued.
Not recognized.
But I would like again to say that sometimes you don't say we are giving women this, we are giving women this. Women should also be able to take. And it brings me back to what Tina said about the way we bring up children. The mothers, everyone around them, when they are young, they are always writing on their brain, I'm a girl, I can't do this. I'm a girl, I'm not equal to the boy. So that even in school, she would say, I remember at one time I thought I couldn't do maths because I was a girl. So it is changing the mindset of these young children from when they are young, and then from there we can get girls growing up, those who will take possession of equality.
Okay. Okay. Oh, when you were mentioning some of the things that you spoke about, we know there's been an increase in land conflicts, especially land that is owned by widowers and well, single mothers owning this land. There's a lot of conflict there. And how can we ensure that the laws such as the 1998 Land Act protects women and girls' rights to accessing land, property and all?
So several things need to happen, Josephine. One, we need to create awareness about the rights of women to owning property, because unfortunately out there, people think that a woman is an asset or a piece of property because they paid the bride price. And because of that thinking, the people don't think that a property can own property. This is a weird
It's a weird way to put it, first of all.
And therefore, we need to create awareness for people to realize, as Anne is saying, that when women or girls are in this world, they also can own property. And families need to bequeath that property to them. Then secondly, the justice system. Of course, the people who are in there also need to change their mindset, because many of them still don't believe that women own property. For example, if you went to get a loan, they'll first ask you, but is this really in some places, is this your property? Where is the man? Because for them, in their thinking, even though the law says differently, they think property is owned by men. So we need to change that and also support women. When they buy property, let them own it in their names instead of putting in the names of some male kinsmen.
Their husbands or sons or, okay. All right, we're going to start from here. When we come back from the break, I'd like us to talk about the laws and how Uganda is doing when it comes to implementation. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Conference Center Nile Room, and we're talking about gender equality today. Gender equality looks good on paper. I mean, it sounds good when we're talking about it. But how are we doing when it comes to implementation? I know that we keep saying Uganda is the best at laws and policies, I mean, in writing them and having them there. But how are we doing when it comes to implementation?
When it comes to implementation, it's really unfortunate because a lot of laws that are really gender specific are not yet being implemented. That's when you hear that there's no money for this, maybe this is not funding, and the framework is in place, but people have not yet raised awareness. I mean, there's not much that has been done to raise awareness about these laws. And unfortunately, some people look at the law as the enemy. They don't know the benefit that the law brings. Because in Uganda, people always look at the law as that's something bad that is coming to arrest you. They don't look at the law from the angle of protection. The law protects. It comes with a lot of benefits. And the systems in place, if you look at the institutions of justice, not a lot has happened to transform how they implement these laws, because some of their standing operations procedures are really old, and many of these laws are fairly new, and they have not yet really changed those internal systems that need them to operationalize.
And like you
these
said,
laws.
we don't really know about them.
Mm-hmm.
What's working for Norway?
Well, we have very clear laws in terms of, for instance, maternity leave. We were talking earlier about people not wanting to hire women because they are giving birth. I think there are still maybe some very old-fashioned people in Norway who think that way, but we see that people become very dedicated, very, how do you say, they want to contribute to the workplace when they have the opportunity to go have their baby. They also share the parental leave with the husband or the partner, and then they are both equally equipped to come back to their workplace and contribute, because they know that they will have the opportunity, they are safe, they have the surplus within themselves to be able to contribute. And I think that's a very important part of our legislation. It is also legislation on equal pay for equal work. It is not 100% implemented, but we're working on it. And like in Uganda, there are laws and then there's implementation. But I think that is also a very important law. We have an ombudsperson for gender equality, where all Norwegians can complain if you're a man or if you're a woman, if you feel that you've been discriminated against because of your gender. So there is legislation that we have. But just a comment on Uganda. What I see in Uganda, I see so many women, I meet so many women who take their destiny in their own hand. They don't wait for the legislation to be implemented. Those people who, you know, designed and made this dress that I'm wearing, they're Ugandans, they're entrepreneurial. They, you know, want to move ahead, and they take the space that they may have, or they create the space. And I know that there are women business people who go through a program called Female Future, where they are trained and they get the competence, and they not least get a network of other professional women that will make them move ahead. So yes, legislation is extremely important, but I also see that there is space and women take space, and it's very encouraging.
We've been working on this Make Happiness and Not Violence campaign, which is part of ending violence against women and girls. And it is surprising when you go around the communities and the even the police don't know the Domestic Violence Act, which became law. They don't know it. It hasn't been disseminated. So how do they implement it?
Wow.
There has been efforts of some civil society organizations to raise awareness about this law. But by far and large, many people don't know about this law. So how does it help them?
What can we do? What do we do going forward, even with this conversation? Anybody who is watching, even us here, what do we do?
Taking the example of HIV and AIDS, we really do need political support. Someone who really believes in the fact that equality will make Uganda grow better.
So we need to do many, many things. We individuals as Ugandans, it's upon us to also know what is there. Once we hear, let us not fear information. Let's learn and let's ask. And then secondly, the government needs to put funds into implementation of these laws, because the justice system needs to have like a clear strategy of dissemination. Even in schools, children should be taught about available laws that are protecting them and everyone else, so that the action of dissemination does not stop once. It should be ongoing. In school, even within church or faith communities, people need to know what their law is saying and how it protects them.
I know that we have a gender equality seal. Have you heard about that? You've heard about it?
Yes.
I just don't know how many organizations are open to actually taking that on, because there's the fear of checks and balances. They're going to check us and make sure we have women and men in the department. Like you said, you have in Norway, where it's a must that there must be this number of representation. We have something that's supposed to be there to help check this, but I don't know if people have opened up to it. Let's take some questions from the audience.
My name is Agatha Lois. My name is Agatha Lois Kuochalia. I'm from Kampala. And my question is, I'm going to answer your question, but in form of a question.
Okay.
I think we can teach the society on how to promote gender equality. However, how can we teach the society? Because it comes down to the society. The government can do everything it can. The government can implement laws. The government can, the UN can also have movements or women empowerment and all that. But it all comes down to the society. If the society does not know what to do, or the girls do not know what to do, to help themselves, to empower themselves, to be confident. So now we need to know, how can we teach the society, parents to raise their girl children, neighbors or teachers how to raise these children, even the boys. Okay. Because the boys are brought up to look down on women. Oh, you're supposed to be in the kitchen. And the girls are also brought up to belittle themselves, to look down on themselves, and to empower or enable the men. So how can we teach the society to promote gender equality, more of gender equality?
I think it goes back to what both of you said about the communities and going back to schools. But if you'd like to, any of you would like to take that.
So I think a lot of our community mobilization work needs to help people to get to what we call a critical thinking position, to start questioning and challenging some of the belief system that they have, and even to start identifying discrimination and injustice. So when we go out to the community there, let us ask people questions about how are you raising both boys and girls? How are you giving equal opportunities to both? And can you see the disadvantages that there is when you exclude the girl child? So people will be able to act once they become really aware of what the challenges are.
All right. Can we take another question, or do you want to say something?
Yes, I remember I brought up the HIV example, AIDS example, when we had a political support. And I remember that even LC1, to get up, they had to give some minutes to talk about HIV. everybody from top to the LC1 in the village. And that's how awareness was built. So can we have something like that?
The same kind of awareness
Yes.
for gender equality. Okay, let's another question.
Thank you very much. My name is Uwero Hussein, Chambog University. My question goes to our panelists. I want you to clarify and give me a difference between gender and sex. And according to me, I think there's a gender inequality in our country. Because according to the previous history, when you go, for example, outside the road, women are driving very expensive cars, better than men. So I think there is gender in our country. So the bird is not moving with one wing.
The bird is moving with both wings.
Yeah.
Okay, from where
Thank
he's
you.
standing, the bird is moving with both wings.
So again, we are coming back to people being gender blind. They are used to not seeing women in any space of a little privilege. So when they see one, that one will seem like millions. So my brother, it is not true that when you see a woman driving an expensive car is an indicator of gender equality. No, very many women are not in such positions. Very many women are still being abused by their partners or discriminated against because they gave birth and they have to be fired from the job. Very many women don't have access to property. They don't own property. Even when you go back to your own village, I believe almost all the land is owned by men in your village. Try to cross-check. Even within a domestic setting, many women don't have power to make decisions about their own lives, about the number of children, or even on finances, because there's a head who must decide for her what to do or not to do. So we are not yet there, my brother.
All right. Would any of you want to make the differentiation between gender and sex? Because he asked about that as well.
I think the important point here is to give equal opportunities for women and men and boys and girls. And you know, what terminology you use, I don't think it's important. The importance is that Uganda should be a good place for women and for men and boys and girls.
Okay.
What she said.
What she said.
Yeah.
All right,
There's a difference between you are a man and you are a woman. Okay? But then they say, don't go to school because you are a woman. That's the difference.
Yes, so maybe just to add on what Anne is saying, gender is about the social expectations and roles that have been prescribed socially for you as a man or a woman. That's how people always think that the head of a household is a man. Even when he's an absentee dad, they will still think that's the head of a household. Again, they will think a man by default is the leader, even though he may not be a good leader. When it comes to sex, it's about the anatomy of you either being female or male. So that's the quick difference between the two. So gender is the social expectations and roles assigned to you socially by, you know, the people around you.
Society.
Society.
Okay, well, let's take another quick break and we'll be right back. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center Nile Room. Just a couple of comments from social media. We have Boss Mood Show says, honestly discussing the desperate challenges women face is a good start to turning this cultural ship around. The women in expensive cars comment is telling. And James says, discrimination of any kind is bad for society. What form does gender inequality in Uganda take and how impactful is it on society as a whole? How pervasive is it? We need numbers on this. How high should one then place it on the list of urgent priorities? Would you like to?
Yes. So one barrier, which is really a big hurdle to gender equality, is the violence against women in this country. We can see like forms of violence, like for example, domestic violence. At least 58% women are experiencing domestic violence of many forms.
They say 3 in 1.
In Uganda, it's
yes.
like if you see every 10 women, 6 are experiencing violence. That's how bad it is. Then when
One
it
in
comes
every
to,
three.
yes, that's global. Then when it comes to sexual violence, it's at epidemic levels. You see many girls are dropping out of school because of defilement, teenage pregnancy, and so on. All those are extreme forms of violence against women. And remember, very recently in Uganda, we had a bad episode where women were being killed and brutally murdered. All those are forms of violence against women, again rooted in gender inequality.
So he asked, do we have figures, and how high should we place this on the list of urgent priorities?
Yes, so domestic violence is at 58% women. That's too high. Again, sexual violence is about 35%. That's again too high. And also the police crimes reports, I don't exactly remember the figures, but there are over 10,000 domestic violence, over 15,000 annually of rape and defilement.
Okay. All right. And yes.
Thank you very much. I'm called Iga Sudais from Kampala International University. Here there is a supplement one. These women who are so far who have achieved key posts, they have also failed to negotiate and explore fighting against domestic violence. Then too, we need mass sensitization, especially to the men, because they are the one failing to implement domestic violence. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was a supplement, unless any of you would like to make a comment about that. Yes?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Farshila from Chambogo University. I want to react about women as a property. Yeah, it's true, a woman is a property because we pay our dowry, and so in Uganda, the stuff of gender equality, it's kinda like I can put it at 15% because women can't pay that bride price.
So women are not paying a price for the men they're getting. A comment?
And in fact, that bride price is one of the other problems that is sustaining the gender inequality. There is no way a human being can be property. And those are the insensitive hurdles that we have in this country. I think women need to be respected and valued more. You cannot think that I'm a property, I'm an asset. No, my brother. A human being is a human being with equal worth and value. Not because there is bride price paid, it doesn't mean that they are of less value than men.
I wonder if they paid a price for you, would you tolerate a certain kind of behavior towards yourself?
Yeah.
You would? Okay. Fiona.
Thank you, JK. I'm Fiona, a transmission engineer, Nation Media Uganda. I have a question to the panelists. We have socio-political policies that have been passed. How are these policies affecting gender equality? Because I believe it has immensely participated to the degradation of women's emancipation in technology, in coming through to do business, to do everything to do with, because right now, if you did a survey, on 100, 60% of the women no longer turn up to the social media where they used to do their businesses from. Number two, the question is, we've had gender equality. How is Uganda faring when it comes to the STEM, the technology, the education, the mathematics? The girl child has been marginalized when it comes to that area. I was in a class of 45 people, and we had 3 engineers who are girls. You can see a big, huge gap between these 2, male and girl child. How are we bringing these girls on board? How is technology going to be very relevant? Because however much we don't like it, tech today is the bridging gap between everything we're going to do. How are we embracing that? And how are we driving that to achieve it in a country like Uganda? Thank you.
That is very interesting. The effect of technology and technology laws, and I think we need evidence. If we had evidence, then we would bring it up to the fore. Because we don't know how, like this media law is affecting women. It is only, they will say it is hearsay. So we need someone to do research and bring the figures.
I think an important point you raises is that a policy which is in principle gender neutral or neutral on the effect of women and men does have different effect on women and men and boys and girls, because We live different lives, we use technology in a different way, we have a different way of earning money, sustaining ourselves. You were saying when we discussed earlier also about the business women. Do they have a different opportunity to sell their goods with the changes in the media environment here in Uganda? How is that affecting them? On the other hand, you can say that technology is an equalizer, because everybody can go in the internet. You're not subject to the editor of a newspaper or a television show. Everybody can voice their opinion, which is also good, because I see there are very few female commentators in the major newspapers here in Uganda.
There's also been a conversation, and I think that's one of the things she was referring to. So you're doing business online, you're a woman, but then there's quite a bit of abuse for women online. So you find that more women will just get off.
And that's why the work of the women's rights organization is really focused towards addressing all those gender insensitivities within all the upcoming programs, either their policies or development programs. Sometimes we get a pushback by people saying, again, these women, but we know those sensitivities are real. And if we don't address them, women will remain behind. And that's something that we should all join and address.
Okay, another question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Susan, and I work with UN Women. My question is to Susan Eki, Her Excellency. I think the biggest challenge for us in Uganda is the question of accountability and who is supposed to be held accountable for implementation of laws, and also the question around allocation of budgets to gender equality. If you could share with us examples from Norway, how is this working? Who is held responsible, and how are those systems working? Thank you.
Well, we have an Auditor General, as you have here in Uganda, and I think the Auditor General's reports, both in Norway and in Uganda, are very interesting reading, and they actually go through everything, the spending. You have here in Uganda, all budgets needs to have a gender analysis in principle. I don't quite know how it works, but it's very important, and that is, you as a citizen, you can go, the Auditor General can go, write up a report and tell how it works. In Norway, of course, as here, you have the parliament who will assess the government in terms of the government's deliveries. And we have ombudspersons for gender equality, we have ombudsperson for civilians or for people in general. So there are different checks and balances, and again, being here tonight, the media, extremely important participant in the general public debate to hold the people in power to account.
Okay, well, our time is fast spent, so I'd just like us to wrap up. And as we do, what would you like us to take from this conversation? Uganda as a whole, what more can we do? How do we get our policies, our laws, our acts, how do we get these things actually implemented to actually see a change going forward? I'll start from Anne on your side, and then we'll wrap up, and these are your final thoughts.
It boils down to political will, and I think the politicians should be more sensitive to gender equality, and I'm not sure that they are now. They should be more.
Okay.
Yeah, and then to sit down, because many of these laws, many of these principles, many of the guidelines, they boil down, they are not implemented because they lack, mostly they lack support, okay. Financial support.
All right, Susan?
Not only for Uganda, but universally, including my own country, I would say that there are two issues that are crucial: power and money. You have to have the power to make the laws, you have to have the power to make the laws reality. You have to have money as a person, as a woman, to have the freedom to choose your own life.
Building on what she's saying, gender equality is something of critical importance if we have to develop as a country. There is no if or but about it. And it's everyone's responsibility, the government and even as the Ugandan citizens. We have to do it every day, in our own homes, in the public spaces, and everywhere. and we shall all benefit and develop maybe to the levels of Norway.
All right.
So it is a push and pull.
Everybody contributes.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time to speak with us today. Our time is quickly spent, but I've just received a couple of comments, and somebody just sent in some research that was shared on the more gender equality, the fewer women in STEM, so I can share that with you as soon as we have a moment. Thank you once again for watching. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition. Keep it NTV.